Of late, Simgot has been on the roll with an onslaught of IEMs, mostly cheapies below $100 with models such as the EW100, EW100 DSP, EW200 and EA500 all in the earlier half of 2023. These are all single dynamic IEMs and have been quite popular with the community, and for good reason. These provide really good value, especially when it comes to price. I mean, the EA500 is an extremely technical sounding IEM at its price point of below $100. So the Super Chunk Show has received the latest Simgot EM6L. Simgot approached the EM6L quite differently from the ground up, as they have adopted the Harman Preference 2019 curve as the basis of the tuning. It will be quite interesting to see how does this affect the overall sound of the EM6L. So let's just kick things off with an unboxing. The EM6L Phoenix has a similar style box with the popular EA500. In terms of size, it is similar. It also has a similar finishing. There is quite a nice Phoenix logo on the front of the box that looks like a burning bird. Of course, they had to put the all-important high-res logo on the front of it as well. So flipping to the back, you'll notice the curve that was employed by Simgot, and you will notice how similarly it matches with the Harman Preference curve of 2019. Not exactly the same, but pretty similar. I am a sucker for exploded views, and the one that Simgot has kindly included is quite a pretty one. I think that is simply because I like to watch things explode. Removing the outer cover reveals the Phoenix decal in the center. Quite tasteful design if I do say so myself. Now flipping that up, you'll see the IEMs themselves, which we will talk about in a bit. But for now, we will move on to the accessories. Inside it is a black egg-shaped case that houses the braided cable of the Simgot EM6L. Importantly, it also includes the instruction manual that no one reads. Below the earphones are the ear tips. I'm really not sure what are these, but they are really not E-Waves ear tips and they are really decent. And of course, next we'll talk about build quality. When I first laid eyes on the EM6L, I thought that it was a full metal build like that of the EA500, but until I held it in my hands, the glossiness does seem like metal. That is only until when I start knocking the left and right together and realize that it does not have the metallic resonance, but rather a plastic thud. The color matching is also pretty well done with the metal faceplate from certain angles, but after a while you do notice that it is a shade different from the plastic chassis. The faceplate is metal and has a dark blackish finish on it, with just the Simgot Phoenix logo in the center. Simple and classy, just like how the box is as well. I do find that these earphones tend to be rather simple and elegant and a little understated, which is nice when you just want to go stealth for a day. These are really well made, but I'm not really sure if they will survive a sit test. The Simgot EM6L features a 2-pin termination. Although they look like QDC style, they are not and have normal phase. For folks who like to cable roll, just roll away. You don't have to invert them or what, it's just normal phase. Cable provided is a 2-pin high purity silver plated copper cable. This cable is twisted and I rather like the black and silver look to it, and I find that it really matches well with the dark colorway of the EM6L. It has a usable choker that allows you to control the amount of slack. Microphonics is also minimal as well. These cables are pretty decent. Inside the chassis of the EM6L are 4 balanced armatures, 1 single dynamic driver as the driver configuration. Quite a lot of drivers for the asking price, but as you know, drivers count don't really mean anything. It is how you use it that matters. Simgot did mention that there is a 3-way crossover here for better driver division of labor. Comfort. The EM6L has a classic earphone shape, something that you probably have seen by this point of time, something that you have probably seen by this point of time, and as such, comfort on these is actually pretty good. I don't feel that the nozzle is long enough for the earphones to sit snugly in your ears. The cable is also pretty lightweight yet not microphonic, and this allows the EM6L to feel light in the ears with a pretty manageable cable. I like that it isn't too microphonic. The ear tips provided is also a pretty good match for both comfort and sonics as well. Sound. I've included a graph, so please feel free to pause to view it. I actually left the EM6L running in while I was in Hong Kong, so it received a grand total of about 5 days worth of run-in. I do feel that it became a little bit more cohesive after the process and more enjoyable. Also, one thing about the EM6L is that it is very sensitive to ear tips. I found that they work best with the stock ear tips or ones that have a larger ball opening, and this is probably due to the innate character of these ear tips. Sound-wise, the EM6L is quite a departure from the EA500. The EM6L is a warmer and more lush offering by comparison. This is due to it being based off the Harman 2019 preference curve. Simgot did opt to follow the curve but made it a bit warmer with an elevated 100 to 200 Hz. This eventually leads to mid-bass, lower mids to be a little bit more exaggerated. So the EM6L is actually pretty airy for its style of tuning, but this is largely dependent on what type of ear tip that you use. I will always opt for larger ball openings for best result on the EM6L. But of course, a graph speaks nothing about the overall tone of the IEM. This we will talk in greater detail. So bass. The EM6L is a bassy pair, not to the point of it being a bass head pair, but I do feel that it has enough quantity for most folks. Bass is certainly prominent in the soundscape, but does not dominate all attention. Sub-bass extension is excellent on these. The dynamic driver handles bass can keep up with the quantity. It is also relatively responsive sounding as well and is moderately speedy with good resonant characteristics. Mid-bass is also thicker than what Simgot has previously released. That's to say that it has a very full sounding mid-bass. I do find that the definition in mid-bass is very respectable while using larger ball ear tips, and it just adds a bit more treble harmonics to give the mid-bass a little bit more edge. Bass dynamics is lovely with good levels of slam. It just makes it very fun sounding and resonant. Bass has a lot of character, and despite it being a little bit more in quantity, it does not lack in technicalities either. I like how Simgot managed to balance this. Midrange on the EM6L is a warm and large affair, which is quite different from the upper midrange and technical sound of the EA500. I really enjoyed that the midrange is rendered very full and warm. Simgot has really showed versatility in tuning with this thicker tonal weight IEM as compared to the EA500. Male vocals have the gravitas and weight that really accentuates it, and it's really quite a pleasure to listen to. There's a velvetiness in the character as well. When it comes to female vocals, it is indeed a little warmer and fuller, but still has a nimble character. It is pretty full sounding, but I do find that with the correct ear tips used, there is plenty of definition. Clarity in the mid-range is good, but not really hitting exceptional. This is a byproduct of the style that Simgot is attempting, but considering that, I think that it is actually pretty competent. The overall tone is smooth, but with enough bite for it to be interesting. Although balanced armatures are used for the mid-range and treble voicing, it does not have the overly rounded balanced armature sort of sound, thankfully. Treble. When I was testing the EM6L, I found that it is very ear tip sensitive. I was swapping around the final type E and the stock ear tips, and I found that the final type E really reduced the amount of air quite substantially in the treble region. This led to instruments to lack a bit of definition, which I would have liked. I then swapped them back to the larger ball stock tips, and this does open up the sound by quite a bit. Treble is audibly more extended. It still isn't the most airy of IEMs out there, but does perform better with the stock tips. I do feel that the treble of the EM6L is pretty similar to something like that of the Truthear Project Red, but you get the perception that it is warmer due to the elevated bass levels. The EM6L isn't a bright IEM by any stretch, but I do find that the treble extension, it is good, but not to the extension of the high heavens. It has an overall really polite presentation and will suit many. Crashes and cymbals are not harsh sounding, but sparkly enough to be of interest, and it's overall pretty smooth. When it comes to soundstage, width and height on the EM6L is average. I don't find them to be very wide or tall sounding, but neither is it really small, so average would be a fair assessment. When it comes to depth and positioning, that is actually really good on the EM6L. Because of its dynamic nature, you can hear how deep the instruments are. Positioning is decent, but that is coming from wider ball ear tips. And next comparison, so the most obvious one to compare would be the Simgot EA500. I think that the EA500 is an exceptional IEM for the technicalities and provide really good resolution for the price. EA500 really bests the EM6L in terms of absolute resolution, but the EM6L does sound quite a bit more musical musical. The EA500 is a little bit more crisp and clear, while the EM6L strikes a very good balance between technicalities and tone, and the EM6L would be the one that I pick if I was really into a long listening session. It is just simply more musical and strikes a really good balance between musicality and technicality. And next, comparing it with the Truthear Zero Project Red. So really, in terms of curve, the EM6L is quite similar to the Project Red, but I would say that the EM6L is a bit warmer sounding with a slightly thicker note weight by comparison. I do feel that the EM6L is also a little bit more dynamic sounding than the Red, with more intricate technical chops, such as having higher resolution. I do feel that it has better treble extension and air compared to the Project Red. Vocals are a little bit more recessed on the EM6L than the Red, but honestly not by much. If you like the Red and want a better IEM, do check the EM6L out. It's basically a level up version of the Project Red. And finally, in conclusion, the EM6L is a warm IEM at heart, as it really differs from the neutral warm ones that is really all over the place in the market. It is an IEM that is actually pretty sensitive to tip rolling and can have a major implication on the sound. I would only use white ball ear tips on these, as it really brings out the treble to better balance out the overall sound without it becoming too overly warm and rounded. Musicality is something that I really enjoy on the EM6L as well, and they did balance it well without it sounding overly thick. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Supercharged Super Audio Show. Yeah, sorry it took so long for the EM6L. I did receive it a while ago, but I was traveling and I will be traveling quite a bit in the next month. Yeah, do check out the video this weekend. I'm gonna show you where I went and some cool earphones that I heard overseas. With that said, if you like the content so far, please kindly press the like and subscribe button somewhere down below. It will help me out a bunch. And yes, do let me know which earphones you want to listen to, and I will try to get them so that we can have a proper full-scale review. With that said, thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you guys soon.